What is going on, everybody?
What's
Welcome to Nick. What's going on, bro?
I just want to grab my mic when that's on me.
Yeah.
In the intro.
Listen, I have to give credit to my daughter's good friend Chance, who put that together for me over the summer. So Chance put that. Now I found the videos, but he put it all together.
Shout out Chance.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to introduce you to our guest pretty soon. But just real quickly, we are Flyer and Ice, brought to you by the Heat Ratio Sports Network. This is season 2, episode 6. And because I'm Dan Old School Green, we're going to call this the Moose DuPont episode. Thoughts on that, Nick?
Old school.
Oldest number 6 I could think of.
Yes.
And you
just,
can.
Chris Terrian was number 6, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I should have threw Chris Terrian. I was even going to go Fred Arthur. 1 year Fred Arthur. Then he left hockey to go to med school, if you remember. So we are Flyer and Ice. Please subscribe to our parent channel, Heat Ratio Sports, on YouTube. Tell your friends and family. Check us out on Apple Pod, Spotify, and all the other good podcasting sites on your drive home. And ladies and gentlemen, with me today and Nick today is James Roberts of Offside Hockey Talk. James, welcome. Please share your resume with our viewers and plug your work. And then I'm going to show the viewers a little something else.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Just do the Offside Hockey Talk podcast. We work with the Cole Harbour Colts here in Nova Scotia as well. I do play-by-play for them. Taking half the season off this year. Drop prediction season videos every single game for the Maple Leafs. You guys might have seen me chirp you guys a time or two. I take it from Flyer fans every single day at work because the Leafs just can't beat the Habs. But yeah, you can find me online and enjoy. Like making videos and having fun. That's what we do.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I found James. I mean, James and I are casual friends through just the network of podcasting. But when you see this, you'll understand why James is on our show.
Well, Nashville comes to town on a 3-game winning streak. It's a shame the Toronto Maple Leafs got to hand them a defeat. Duchesne with a tear in his eye as Matthews blows by. And UC drowns his sorrows. I'm sure Yossi's got a shoulder he can borrow. As Willie Styles celebrates the win, as the Toronto Maple Leafs are victorious again. What's going on, Leafs Nation? James from Offside Hockey Talk, having a little fun with the hashtag prediction season videos. Here we go, taking on the Nashville Predators tonight.
That's essentially the idea, ladies and gentlemen. And I will take a little offense because I believe he threw the old overused, cliched Santa Claus reference when he did the Flyers opening, but we'll let that slide because he's a good man. Now, James, I need you to swear on a stack of Toronto Maple Leaf almanacs that you do it on one take like you said to me. You do.
I do those on one take. So essentially what it is it's one quick rip, and if I screw up at any point, it's gone, and I have to re-rip the whole thing again. It's one shot. There's no cuts. There's no edits. So from start to finish, that's one clip, and away you go.
On a stack of Toronto almanacs.
Trust me, my wife sits there and watch me freak out because I'll get right to the end of one of those videos, and I'll screw something up, and it's just deleted and done again.
Well, anyway, you could just tell by James's little video clips the personality and knowledge that he indeed has. And it makes it a lot more fun when his team is rocking and rolling the way they are.
Finally.
So let's get down to business. Finally is kind of a good opening. Both our teams have something similar in common. It's called a long Stanley Cup drought. I believe yours is the longest at 54 years. We're at 46 years with the Sabres and Canucks mixed in at 50 years. Not a list you want to be a part of. I can take one little minor bragging right. It's so minor that at least the Flyers have been to 6 finals in those years, whereas I don't think you've had a deep run since 92, 93.
We had a conference final mixed in there. I think it was 2002, 2003.
All right.
Against the Carolina Hurricanes.
That's right. That's
about it.
Right. But that being said, your team is stacked now. And I can only imagine, though, tell us what it's like in Toronto, the pressure that the Leaf players and organization must go through. Now, you have champions in the past with the Blue Jays. The Raptors recently won a championship. I'm not going to go Argos because, we're NFL people here. But I would imagine it's all Leafs 24/7, and the pressure they must feel must be unbelievable.
It is. When those other two teams, though, when the Blue Jays and the Raptors are doing well, it does take the pressure off a little bit, especially in the spring when the Blue Jays are fresh, maybe when the Leafs are just exiting, which seems to happen a lot. The Blue Jays coming in really fanfare takes it down just a little bit. But, when the season starts, you got the Raptors rolling too. So these things, they balance it out a little bit. But, I mean, the pressure that's in Toronto, I mean, there's a reason why Brian Burke always said every single player that has a no-trade list has all 7 Canadian teams on it, because the fans in those markets are insane. Same thing goes for Philly, New York, Boston, the big markets, but really in Canada, it's what teams are focused on, because you look at all the markets here in Canada, really the only one that has another major sports team is Toronto. Everybody else, it's one team for that market, and that's all there is to talk about. So you're talked about to death what you had for supper, what you did last night, where'd you walk your dog, where'd you go out for drinks. It's all on the table. Everybody knows every little bit.
Yeah, that's what we figured. And our version, not even probably to the percentage that you're dealing with, are the Eagles. The Eagles are the big dog in this town. Nick
Well, that's
Tost,
right.
the Eagles are.
On me there.
I was saying the Eagles are they pretty much hog the airways in the Philadelphia area.
Yeah,
Hockey
well, I
Eagles
can
is
imagine
big.
the NFL is definitely huge, right?
Yeah, everyone's a distant second behind the Eagles in Philly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Flyers might be in a lot of situations fourth in the 4-for-4 category, as it relates. And the fan base is incredible, very loyal, very passionate, but it's very small compared to baseball and football for sure.
Well, let's flip that on you guys. I mean, being, where there are more major sports teams in Philadelphia, what does it mean for you guys? Like, what is the pressure like for that team? Because you're not only fighting for the fans, but you're also fighting for airtime and fighting to be relevant amongst those other teams, which are bigger draws. So what's it like for a market like the Philadelphia Flyers to try to get the eyeballs on the product and obviously try to set that tone amongst the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA?
We're still pretty big here. Don't get me wrong. There's the radio shows don't really talk much hockey. They always say it's only a small niche that really like the Flyers, which is baloney in my opinion. But when the Flyers make their playoff run, they're talked about it a lot. I mean, it's just hard to quantify. We're like you said, we are a major market, just as Boston is.
Yep.
and New York is, and because every team is huge here, but the Flyers, I guess, would have to be ranked towards the bottom if if you could have a scientific measurement. Would you agree, Nick?
For sure. Yeah. But what it does, at the end of the day, I feel like the fan base is probably, very comparable to like the Eagles fan base and the NFL fan bases here. It's very, very loyal, very passionate, very knowledgeable, really. When you do hear people through podcast or through radio or whatever the case may be, and you hear the feedback that you get from Flyers fans as it relates to how when things are going well or where there's opportunities and things aren't going so well, which is like right now, we make a lot of sense. I mean, you really when you hear the perspective and you hear the comments and the feedback, it's a very knowledgeable fan base, which is great. So for me, there's a perspective in Philadelphia on how the Flyers started the season and, kind of gone into a little bit of a tailspin now, but it'd be interesting to see from you, James, what's the outsider's perspective on this right now? Do you guys have, especially for somebody coming out of the Toronto area, what do you see? What do you in particular see what's going on with this Flyers team right now?
What we hear, or what I hear anyway, is it feels like the coach has kind of lost the room, in my opinion. You look at last year and the comments that were made about maybe he was too hard, too harsh, those kind of things came out. And those things don't go away just because you change some of the personnel, unless you change the coach. For me, I mean, I was really I like Carter Hart, big fan of him. I really wanted him to have a bounce back year this year, which it seems like he is. but just needs like the team around him isn't. And if you watched our season preview show, I picked Philly to be one of the big surprises this year and go really far and have a really good record because of who they brought in character-wise. You look at the Atkinsons, you look at the Ristolainens, Ryan Ellis. I know he's been hurt, but these guys were supposed to be character guys to drive this team to a different direction, to bring the give a bleep meter up a little bit, right? But it just hasn't materialized. And you look at the Flyers and you say, well, you got the right pieces. What's going on? And to me, sometimes maybe it's just the voice in your ear. You look at the Leafs, talented squad, but they tuned out Babcock. And then they started going in the toilet. Sheldon Keefe, it took him, almost a season and a half to get the trust of that room and to bring things into fruition to where he wants it, which is what you're seeing this year with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I don't know, maybe it's the same kind of thing going on there. But to me, it's a team that doesn't, I want to say it like this, but doesn't respect the coach. That's what
I would agree with that. We've discussed that. We have a show we called Waking Up with Flyer and Ice on Sundays. And that was a topic that we had Zach Kinderchuk on, the son of Oris Kinderchuk, who has a great podcast. My dad used to play hockey. And we talked about that. I mean, he's got the pitchforks and torches already on the lawn of AV. My only quandary is that they started so well this year. And I think it was the character that you referenced. I think the team got a jolt from these great guys. They're all well-liked around the league, let alone the locker room. And then it just stopped. And now it's looking like March all over again. So I just don't understand how you can go from moving your feet, crisp passing, to looking like a dead team.
Well, it goes to the guy again that's leading the charge, right?
Yeah.
You bring in these guys are supposed to be the voices of this team, these new voices that you want to refresh this locker room. But if Alain Vigneault is shutting them down, and then it becomes the same rhetoric as before, as soon as they hit a snag, he becomes Mr. Negative Nancy, and the problems, become bigger than they actually are. How do you play your way out of that? If you're not having someone that's got your back, or these new guys that are coming in that are bringing a fresh perspective, if they don't have the coach's back, or the coach doesn't have their back, it becomes one big problem again. And you're right back to where you started from, because now everybody's pissed off, and now the new guys are pissed off, and nobody knows where to go.
We're in agreement.
Who do you value on this Flyer squad? So you put on your Toronto Maple Leafs GM hat on, and you could potentially make a trade. Who would you target? And you mentioned Carter Hart. How do you feel in particular about him?
You know what? I'd love Carter Hart and the Leafs, to be honest with you. That's a young goaltender, but I believe what Hextall said about leaving him and letting him, ferment and grow and become. We know goalies are a creature of habit, and between the ears is a big thing for goaltenders. So, I mean, if you got a goaltender and you're bringing him along, why rush him? Why do anything to jeopardize anything that hurts his development? And I know the Flyers were a goalie graveyard for so long, but you need to, bring goalies along. I mean, it drives me nuts to see teams rush anyone. Like, I was the biggest Luke Shen fan here in Toronto, and to watch them rush him in because they needed some sort of name back in the day to get the fans excited again. I really think they hurt his career. He should have went down and dominated. And same thing with Carter Hart. I think he should have just grew his game. You look at guys like Carey Price, they stayed in the minors. They played with the Hamilton Bulldogs. They earned their stripes, and then they came up. And I think Carter Hart would have benefited from that, especially with the mess the team was in. It's like throwing, a lamb into the slaughter, really. But you asked me what players I'd like off that team. I mean, there's lots of guys. I mean, I like Sean Couturier. Scott Lawton's a good guy for me. Look, just go down the list. I mean, Provorov. Anybody can benefit from those guys on their team, but it's just right now they're not working together on the Flyers.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Claude Giroux is another guy. I think you put him in a fresh spot, and you'll see the spark back in his game. It's like Ryan O'Reilly when he left Buffalo. He said he didn't have the love for the game anymore, went to St. Louis and tore it up. Now, I mean, obviously, Giroux's a little older, but I definitely see him going somewhere and having an impact.
Yeah, it's interesting because he has a no trade, and there's rumors he really wants to end his career here. So we'll see how that plays out at the trade deadline, if he's indeed had enough, or if they bring a new voice in that rejuvenates him and the team.
Who would you bring in?
The rumor mill would be Tocchet, who's sitting out there.
Former Flyer, makes
former
sense.
Flyer legend, hard nosed kind of guy. We shall see. I mean, he wasn't like he had the greatest resume with Phoenix, but that's the name that's been thrown out. So I was listening to Steve Koulias and I believe Mike Rupp a while back, and one of their concerns with Toronto was that the entire salary cap is essentially 5 guys, right? Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Riley, and of course Matthews. And their concern was the revolving depth in the other lines and a decor, players leaving, that was their concern. But for me, I'll take 5 studs any day of the week. I mean, every guy I mentioned was a first overall, 4th overall, 5th overall, 8th overall kind of guy. So you got 5 studs to build around, and then you got guys like Kerwood. You've got a nice team, and your goalie's been playing out of his mind.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on that comment that Rupp and Coolius might have been attributed to? I don't want to totally misquote them, that the depth is their concern because of where the salary cap is.
I say look at the Pittsburgh Penguins when they went on their runs for their 2 cups. What were their big dogs? It was Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Fleury, maybe Kessel, if you want to add a big contract in there. So then they built around them with pieces. They were able to call up guys or bring in guys that were either reclamation projects or guys that were calling up from the minors that were making an impact. So the Leafs are trying to, I think, replicate that model, and they've done well this year. David Kampf is their answer to Philip Deneau, and they got him for 2 years. He's a great defensive center, good at the penalty kill. Same 9 for Andre Kasha, good at blocking shots, drives the net, does all those little things. So, yes, you spent all your money on 5 guys, but what do you want to do? Do you want to spend your money on a bunch of guys that may not click together and maybe a middling of the pack kind of player? Or do you want impact guys that make, Matthews does everything, Marner does everything, Riley can run your power play and your back end. You look at John Tavares, point per game player almost this season again, and us here, media people here in Toronto will say that it was a bad signing, but I don't know how you can say it's a bad signing when you got a point per game guy who's been a point per game guy the entire time he signed with your team. That to me is it blows my mind. But I would build around those 5 guys every day of the week, because the rest of the cap, you got guys like Muzzin who said, yeah, I'll take $4.5 million. You guys like TJ Brody didn't take more than $5 million. They came in to fill in that back end. And that's the way they've been able to attract some names too. Like a Jason Spezza wants to stay on a league min. And Spezza looked like he rolled back the clock last year, 30 points. So, right. You build around those guys, you hype up those guys, and those guys deliver point-wise. I know they haven't delivered in the playoffs. It's a whole different conversation. But they've delivered on the ice, which makes players say, hey, maybe I will take less and come swing in. Look at Clifford. Absolutely over the moon that Kyle Dubas called him and said, hey, you're trying to Maple Leaf again. When Mike Babcock was here, getting any kind of depth guys to come to this team, it was almost non-existent, especially the way he traded some of those guys or treated them as well. So now you have these big players, these big name guys who deliver for you, but you also have now built around them with some of those depth pieces like a Kerfoot. Who thought Kerfoot could be what he is? Everybody's crying about Jared McCann in the offseason, but now Kerfoot's up there in the same ilk as him point-wise, a few off. And then you look at Michael Bunting, you add him for a cheap deal. He's not far off what Hyman has for point value either this season, and for a fraction of the cost. So these are the things you have to look for, and you have to draft well as well. Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren, players that are able to come up into your lineup. And Toronto has good guys that they drafted down in the minors as well on the forward ranks. This is what you have to do now, and where do you bet on? You bet on talent. I'm sure any Flyers fan, you guys would say the same thing. Your top players are your top players because you bet on talent. And that's
and the top 5 we referenced, like we said, absolute studs.
Yeah,
so I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with you.
But the problem the Leafs are going to run into, and I'm sure they're correct. Where do you get the money now to sign Jack Campbell? You will have a little bit of cap space this offseason, but unless you're clearing Nick Ritchie's 2.5 off the books, it's going to be tough to sign Jack Campbell, who's playing himself towards maybe say a Vezina trophy. If the rewards were closed right now,
absolutely,
he'd be probably top bill. But we'll see what the end of the season brings, and we'll see. Everybody comes back down to the means, so we'll see what his means actually are. But since he's been with the Leafs, I think he's got a 33-7-2 record or something like that. Absolutely just mind-boggling. He's gone on a tear here. But I said for Jack Campbell, a safe deal given his age. 4 years, $4.5 million would probably be where Toronto wants to be. He's probably played himself into a $6 million deal, probably somewhere else, probably 7 years.
Is he that old? He was
30.
a former first round pick, right? He is 30, huh?
He's
He's
30.
29.
Okay.
turning
He's a Michigan
30,
kid. Yeah.
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 So now you look at that. This is his home run, right? We always talk about guys signing home runs like James Van Riemsdyk. When he signed back with the Flyers, he wants that home run. So this is Jack Campbell's chance for that home run to be able to bring himself in some major money. And, is he going to be happy signing for 4 years at $4.5 million? Probably not. He's going to take every dollar he can get because, like they always say, it's a business. They love playing for a team. They love playing for this and that and the other stuff. But at the end of the day, cold hard cash rules the whole world. So
That's a good answer. That's kind of, we're in agreement. Because you can even say Colorado. I mean, not Colorado. I guess Colorado, but more Tampa Bay has the blueprint as well. With
yep.
So and look what they have done.
Well, you look at Tampa Bay had to get rid of their entire third line.
Yeah, but they drafted well and
redrafted well, brought guys up, brought them in, and away they went. Now those players are gone somewhere else, and now they've got players again to fill the void. So, it's like the Patriots in the NFL. Back in the day, it was next up mentality.
Correct.
They always had the next guy ready, groomed, and ready to go. We don't need, Wes Welker or Amendola or any of those kind of guys. There was somebody else in the system ready to go who could fill that void.
The obvious teams right now that are standing out as far as the front runners to, it's early in the season, but the front runners look like Toronto, Florida, and Tampa Bay, right? So, do you see anything else, anybody else popping in there, possibly giving any of those three teams a run in the Atlantic?
I'm a big thought in my head that Florida is not going to be what we think they are right now towards the end of the season. And that's not a shot at them. I just have a feeling they're going to regress, and it's going to be, middling of the pack kind of thing for them. They'll make the playoffs, but I don't think they'll make much noise. Tampa, I think they're only going to get healthier. And of course, they'll probably add, who knows who they'll put on LTIR to get somebody at the deadline. So we'll see that coming, cap relief team there. But Colorado, to me, Vegas, everybody's not talking about Vegas. They made the trade for Eichel and it's kind of gone quiet there. What happens with them when Eichel comes back and all of their star players are back that are injured right now? That's a scary team. But also, the other caveat for them is they have to clear, I think it's $7.5 million off the books to bring Eichel on and be able to use him, off the LTIR. So they're going to be fresh for the picking at the trade deadline or before for teams to pick, players off their roster to bring them down. But those two teams, Vegas and Colorado for sure. A sneaky one, obviously, not so sneaky anymore, I guess, Carolina. Freddie Anderson said some things. They've hit COVID protocol, but I really think that's a team. And listen, I picked in the beginning of the season, I picked the Flyers. I really thought the Flyers were going to have a run in them this year. You guys broke my heart in high school, I'll say that. Jeremy Roenick blaring down the wing. I was at a high school dance when he scored that goal and put the Leafs out of the playoffs. And that started a very long playoff drought for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So,
well, Darcy Tucker had a nice hit on Kapanen in that little sequence. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we remember that too.
Yeah. So, those teams there, you look around the NHL, it's still early. Any team that's in the playoff hunt right now is a team you got to worry about. And you look for a team that's probably going to try to make some noise. Pittsburgh always finds a way to do something. Who else? Boston. What's Boston going to do with Tuukka Rask? Is he coming back, or is Tuukka going to go look for another team to pump up for a playoff run? Who knows? The Islanders. The Islanders, to me, are the biggest head scratcher this season. Obviously, I don't like them because of the way they treat Tavares, but at the same time, I really thought they were going to be a lot stronger than they are this year.
I have to give my man Nick here credit. He's said for a year and a half the Islanders stink, and this year he's been proven right. So we'll see if the Islanders continue to stink.
They have great coaching, though,
yes,
by the way, and that is one of the reasons why they made that run they made last year. But they stink.
Speaking of runs, the Canadians had that unbelievable run to the Cup Finals. Obviously, Carey Price had a lot to do with it. Are you at all shocked about this complete free fall they've had and the whole, chopping of heads in the executive office?
No, not a little bit. They were the 18th place team last season, or was it the bubble season? Sorry. Last season they got in. If you look at the standings, I think they were still around the same number, 18 to 20. They weren't a playoff team in a regular year.
Right.
They got lucky. They went on a run. They beat Toronto. Toronto, I don't know what the heck happened there. We'll put that one to bed. That's just ridiculous. But no, they went on a run. They got lucky. It seemed like every series for them too on that run, somebody's big player was gone. Pacioretty. You look at Winnipeg. Scheifele got suspended. Toronto, John Tavares. So every series there was something that happened that benefited the Montreal Canadiens. But they also went on a run because Carey Price stood on his head. And they were playing their arses off for Shea Weber. That was a big thing there. But you look at all the things that I just said, that team was 18, just say 18 both seasons, 18th team overall in the league. That means you're not making the playoffs. You're just missing the cut. So you're not a team that goes in there. You're a team that's trying to figure it out is what you are. And it came home to roost this year. It came home to roost because now you thought, okay, we can let Kotkaniemi walk. We can let Philip Deneau walk, which Philip Deneau is their glue. He was their glue because he allowed guys like Nick Suzuki to go out and play their offensive game because there was a defensive safety blanket behind him. Now there's not. Now Suzuki needs to be that. Now Dvorak needs to be that. And these guys aren't used to being that. Then you have a defense that's now minus Shea Weber. You're also minus Edmondson, who is out. Petrie, who's not the same since he had a bone snap back. These guys are all, I'd still say, banged up. And you look at the young guys you're supposed to count on. I said for the longest time, Cole Caulfield, when he came up last year, shouldn't have been up. Because what happened was he was a product of his own demise. He goes and scores overtime goals. He's jumping around. He's getting the energy, getting everybody excited. All the fans are buying in. Cole Caulfield's going to be the rookie of the year next year. That hype goes up and up and up and up and up and up. And in a city like Montreal, we all know the fans absolutely eat you alive. And what happened? He came out and laid an egg and continued to lay an egg, and they couldn't figure it out. And what happened to him? Got demoted to the AHL, came back up, still the same story, but it's a confidence killer. He should have been in the AHL to dominate for a longer period of time. Let him ferment. Let him get used to the game. Bigger players, bigger men. It's great to come in and have fun and score overtime goals at the tail end of a season when you're in the Canadian division, but it's also you go on a playoff run and you got all these guys around you and everything's going well and perfect. Where's the adversity? He hasn't faced any. Then he faced some, and all of a sudden, where'd he go? He's not scoring goals. And if he's not scoring goals, he's not Cole Caulfield. And you can see the swagger in his game went away quickly. Absolutely quickly. Same with Romanov. When he wasn't being productive with hitting or doing all those things, the other little things became glaring weaknesses in his game, and he became a player that you couldn't watch. And now you look at Montreal fans talking about Romanov. He's no longer that blue chip defenseman, prospect they were all excited about. He's a guy they don't even want playing anymore. They're waiting for guys to come back off of injury. It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, I was pointing upwards to my man Nick because he had Caulfield winning Rookie of the Year. So he was right on the Islanders and so far wrong on Caulfield. And I guess to your point, maybe Nick and I are dying for the Flyers to bring Cam York up, but maybe they should baby him. Was that your thoughts on Cam York as well?
You should. I don't know. If your team is not doing well, don't look for a young guy to be the savior. That's what happened to Montreal last year going in towards the playoffs. They needed a goal scorer. So they called up Cole Caulfield. And like I said, he caught fire. Great. But at the same time, when the expectations go up, can the player meet and exceed those expectations every time? Or does it start to put cement in his boots and he can't skate and can't play? I think that's why bringing a guy along in the AHL, I don't care who it is. You look at what Burke did with Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaff. Sent him down, let him play down there. Let him play in the A, let him grow. Let him learn, let him be a pro, and then come up. But at the same time, teams want these young guys to be up because you see so many success stories. You look at Lucas Raymond over in Detroit. Or you look at Zegras, yeah, in Anaheim. Or even Sider in Detroit as well, doing well on the blue line. These young guys, some of them can do it. But at the same time, what's the expectation in Detroit right now? Absolutely low. The fan expectation is low. In Montreal, everything was so high. You went on a Stanley Cup run. You went to the Cup Finals. So now everybody's like, what's next? And as soon as you start going wrong and things go wrong, I'll say it right here in Leafland, you're questioning as soon as things go south. So can these young guys handle it? And that's the problem. I think you guys keep York down. Right now, it's not the time to bring him up. If things are in turmoil, you don't want a guy coming around. Everybody's grumpy. Nobody's working in cohesion. You want to bring that young guy up there to feel that? No, let him play down the A and stay away from the problem. That's my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, and it looks like your thoughts are going to come to fruition. Nick.
So we talked about the Atlantic. How about the Metro, James? Who do you see as the top three coming out of the Met and the two wild cards?
I might prove you right here. I do think the Islanders will turn it around. I know there's a lot of runway they got to make up, but I do think once they get off COVID protocol and get back to that structure you're talking about, I do think that they will turn it around and get going. And then, of course, Pittsburgh and Washington, you can't keep out of those two. Those are the guys that I really think will come out of it. Only because you look at the end of the day here, Crosby's not getting any younger. Malkin's going to come back and be whatever he's going to be, probably be back for the Olympics and then the run at the other side of things. But those three teams I see being the ones. And as far as wild cards, man, I couldn't even tell you.
Rangers.
I want to say the Rangers, but at the same time, was the offense there for them outside of Panarin and Kreider? I look at their team and Adam Fox, but submitted, yeah. But I mean, I'm looking consistent sniper, ready to go, load you up and take you on a run. And
they got defense and goaltending too, though, which is really young defense. So Adam Fox is just out of control right now. Oh, so good.
He's going to win the Norris again this year, probably hands down. And Shesterkin, I mean, everybody said
right.
Beginning of the season, that goaltender right there, you look at him, and a lot of people are picking him for the early Vezina guy. So, yeah, you point in Jeff Merrick too, right? I mean,
he was riding his coattails for a while now.
He's Bob Jr. He looks like Bobrovsky, a younger version for me.
Well, I mean, he does a lot of crazy
legs.
things.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he does a lot of crazy things that a lot of goaltenders can't do. And I guess I listened to Jeff Merrick talk about the, the game that he had. Whatever Shesterkin does is what the U cut when they skate, and trying to teach it to Henrik Lundqvist, and Lundqvist saying, "I just can't do that." And the goaltending coach telling him, "If you try to do that, you're going to blow your hips and blow your knees." So he just moves differently, and it's cool to watch. But it's cool to see a Leaf goaltender battling for the Vezina too. But I mean, yeah, man, from the Met, I'll say your Islanders, or it's not your Islanders, but the Islanders will bounce back. So your pick will be solidified. And then I look at Pittsburgh and Washington. I mean, you can't count on Ovi. I mean, look at that guy, man, rolling back the absolute clock. And
so Carolina, Pittsburgh, Washington to be the three that come out.
You know what? Carolina put in a wild card spot. And
really?
Only reason why I say that is for whatever reason, and this is a bad thing to say, but you see COVID starting to roll through the NHL right now, and every team's taking it. And I think if the way that Carolina plays with their players and the way the team rolls together, I think if you were to lose any segment of that team to a COVID list, I think it would spell huge problems, especially the goaltending ranks. If you were to lose a Freddie Anderson, absolutely good luck. I don't trust the backup to hold very much, to be honest with you. Antti Raanta is not exactly a guy you want to bet the farm on.
No, that's understandable. It's just, it's like, but the bottom line is 60 games left. There's a lot of teams.
There's so much runway.
Get their stuff together, and again, hopefully, our team is one of them. Let's cut to the chase. We're not going to go through any brackets. Give me your 2 Cup finalists and your ultimate winner.
2 Cup finalists.
Despite the fact there's 60 games left and a lot of hockey to be played.
Let me just say, I'm not turning my back on Leafs Nation, but I really, I said it earlier about Carolina, sneaky team. So I'm going to say Carolina, Colorado. I know I had them in a wild card spot just a moment ago, but they're a team that once everything clicks, they run. But I think they're going to be clawing for their playoff butts come towards the end of it. But we look at the LA Kings when they went on a run. So I'm looking Carolina and Colorado. That's my run right there.
And who takes it all?
Colorado.
You I think had Nick's picks to a T.
Exact. Yeah, preseason they were.
I think I have Winnipeg, Tampa, with Tampa winning it all again.
Winnipeg for me, the only thing I see about them is again offense. A little bit dries up at times, and if it dries up in the playoff, what happens? The depth scoring for me, like you lose a guy like Appleton was huge. And they're really rolling all in this year on Lowry too. There's no re-signing there. They already said they're going to keep him right to the end. So
All right, so
Carolina, Vegas. Yeah.
one of our
Carolina,
most
Vegas.
that's Adam's one of our most loyal viewers. So I'm gonna pop up a question that I've been holding back. Adam asked this question earlier, and I'm gonna show it for you, James.
Favorite Maple Leafs moment. That's a tough one. That's an absolute tough one. One that I always remember. It seemed like on the broadcast they were talking a lot of slack and heat towards the Toronto Maple Leafs in this overtime game. I think it was Toronto, Ottawa, and it was back in the Matt Sundin, Steve Thomas era. And it just seemed like Sundin absolutely laid everything into this shot. But it was a drop pass from Steve Thomas at the blue line, and Sundin just wired it past the goaltender. And it was almost like a huge, you know what, to the broadcast. Because all game long, I think they were trashing how they were playing. They didn't have it doesn't look like they have the legs tonight. It doesn't look like the Leafs are in this one. And in overtime, he just blasted it. It was just beautiful. And I remember that one, and I remember it was Sundin as well against Calgary. I think it was 05 or 06. And it was an overtime game again. Same kind of shot. Just blasted it over Kiprusoff's shoulder. And those are the moments I love. I love seeing big guys deliver on big stages. And that's why I can't wait to see this group that we have now do something special in the playoffs to give us more of those kind of memories.
No, I'm actually hoping Toronto does well. I think it's phenomenal for hockey. We need Toronto to get big time again. It's always good when Montreal and Toronto have skin in the game. So it's important for the NHL in particular. Now, we have a fun segment, and I know you have your kids coming home from school soon. So, Nick, before we get into the fun segment, who sponsors this fun segment coming up?
Our next segment is sponsored by Fuse Barbershop in Newtown, downtown Newtown, in the village of Newtown, actually. Great, awesome barbershop. Dan and I both go there. One of our viewers referenced that it's the evolution of the beard. You get your beard done there too. But
yes.
Great theme, great barbers, cool shop, easy booking online. Highly recommended.
I'm in need of a haircut,
them
James.
being our sponsor.
James, I am due to go to Newtown Barbershop. Now we'll give you.
Town, I'll be going with you, buddy.
We'll give you 40% off if you come from Canada. All right. So, Nick, what time is it?
It is time for the penalty box.
Wait a minute, Nick. Hold that thought.
All right,
Nick, what time is it?
It is time for the penalty box.
All right, so we have a little fun segment at the end of each show called the Penalty Box, where we talk anything hockey, mostly yesteryear stuff, from our favorite jerseys of all time to our favorite fighters of all time, yada, yada, yada. So I thought of you today, and I'm hoping that you're a little bit of a historian also. For me, if you love a sport, you have to be a historian regarding the sport. So I hope you are, because here is our topic for today. You have to pick one player from the pair of players that I put up there. I try to find players that were similar in era, skill, importance to their team, positions, all that kind of stuff. So the top left, we have Bobby Clark with Darryl Sittler. In the center, we have Reggie Leach with Lanny McDonald. Top right, we have Dave the Hammer Schultz with Dave Tiger Williams. Down below, we have Mark Howell and Börje Salming. We have Rick Tocchet with Wendell Clark. We have Felix Potvin with Ron Hextall. And we have Landross with Sundin. So we will all take turns with this. If you are a 1975 hockey fan, do you go Clark or Sittler? We'll start with our guest, James.
I know Clark.
We have to go Clark because if it wasn't for Clark and Bernie, there's no comparable to. Yeah, there's no comparable to Bernie. That's why he's not on this list. I can't go Bernie and Palmatier. So yeah, it has to go Clark. But Darryl Sittler was a phenomenal player, and I loved his 2.5 years with the Flyers.
Mhm.
And on a side note, I don't know if you remember this, James. We broke Darryl Sittler's heart. Clark retired in '84, became the GM, and Sittler, I remember on the news, thought he was going to be the next captain. Clark traded him like a day later for Murray Craven and Joe Patterson. Turned out to be a great trade. Murray Craven was a hell of a hockey player.
Yeah, he was.
And Sittler had a horrible last year with Detroit and hung up the skates. But I enjoyed Darryl Sittler with the Flyers. Now, the middle guys. Now, Lanny McDonald had a definitely more prolific career. And I believe, Nick, he even scored 70 goals one year. Reggie scored 61 as well. But with their time with the Leafs and with the Flyers, they were consistent goal scorers. Reggie had a 60, a 50, a 45 kind of year. Lanny was in the 40s and the 30s all the time. Nick, who do you take with Reggie and Lanny?
That's a tough one. I mean, McDonald, how long was his career? I mean, it was
Forever.
over 20 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, he started as like a 20-year-old with
finished
Toronto.
with Calgary.
Correct.
Yep.
Man, God, that's being a Flyers diehard. That's probably one of the tougher ones that I see on the board right there.
That's why it's up there, bro.
Yeah, you did a good job with that one. That's a really tough one. I'm going to stick with Leach just because, I mean, he's one of my all-time favorites. But, man, Lanny McDonald was special. He was a great player. But I'm going to stay with Leach.
Actually, do you remember that the Leafs got rid of McDonald? They traded him to Colorado before he went to
Calgary.
There was a lot of strife around those days. I think Sittler was outraged that they lost McDonald. So are you old enough to appreciate, well, you're not old enough to see these guys play, but based on what you've seen and probably the history you've heard from your family, what are your thoughts on those two?
I don't know much about Leach, obviously. More of a Leaf guy, so more of the stuff that I would learn history-wise would be Leaf-oriented. So for me, I got to go with, anyways, it's Movember. I got to go with the big stash.
Yeah,
you got to go with Lanny McDonald.
Best
stash.
That's legendary. I mean, you look at him with Calgary at the end, that thing was huge. No, but Lanny McDonald, obviously, not only for what he did in the game, but what he does outside of the game, too. Obviously, great work, in the communities and stuff like that, and always giving back. So I really like him for that aspect, too.
Now, you can't go wrong with either of those two. And part of the lore of the Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies, was you wouldn't have the Broad Street Bullies if you didn't have Dave Schultz. And if you didn't have Dave Schultz, you probably wouldn't have Dave Tiger Williams drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I lean Schultz with this one because if not for Schultz, we don't have the Bullies. And when not the Bullies, we don't have our two Stanley Cups. Tiger had a longer career. So I guess all around player wise goes to Tiger Williams, but for what they meant to their club, I have to go Schultz. Nick.
Again, I mean, if I didn't have the orange and black goggles on right now, Tiger Williams he was just a force.
He was a fun player.
And you're right. I mean, he almost kind of replicated himself after Schultz. So, I mean, I got to go with the OG in the orange and black. I go with Schultz, but another tough one.
And our guest, James.
I got to go with Tiger Williams only because when they came here and played the alumni game in Halifax, it was actually great to meet him, talk with him, and the whole grabbing of my shirt like that, just to kind of replicate the NHL grabbing. It was a moment you looked in his eyes and you knew the crazy was still there.
Yeah.
It was fun. Great guy to talk to. Took all the time in the world. So for that, I have to lean with him. I mean, it was great to meet him.
That being said, I heard Dave Schultz is a wonderful gentleman off the ice as well. And I believe Tiger is the all-time penalty minutes leader in the NHL. Now, the next one for me is a slam dunk. That being said, many months ago, I put a poll on Twitter. I'm a huge Bobby Orr fan. Not that I got to watch him play, just for the history of the sport.
Yep.
So I had Bobby Orr by himself up top, and then I said, who are the next three? And I had, Larry Robinson, Nicholas Lidstrom, and help me out, Nick, because you helped me with this poll. There was somebody else I forgot. Anyway,
was Coffee on there?
No, it wouldn't be Coffee because he was a defensive liability. It might have been someone like Dennis Potvin. But the bottom line is, I had a lot of people going off the board and saying Borje Salmon, he's an all-time, and I'm like, no. He had too many years where he was a negative player. he was a phenomenal player. He's a Hall of Fame player. But Markel's a plus 400. Scored 20 or more goals multiple times. So for me, it's Markel. He was a top voter in a Norris Trophy, I believe, 3 years. Should have won it at least twice. Salming was also always a top 5 guy, but I don't think he won it either. So I go Hal at James. Who do you go?
I go Salming. And the reason why, not just because of what he did on the ice at that point in time. Again, I'm a big guy who looks at the entire picture here with these guys. Salming brought along guys with the Leafs organization right now. William Nylander, huge impact on his career, and also Rasmus Sandin. So maybe without him, those guys aren't who they are right now with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I like the Salming effect, shall we say.
No worries. Now, this one is my favorite because I Rick Tocchet is my all-time favorite Flyer. It's Rick Tocchet, Ben Wilson, and then Eric Landross. Those are my top 3 Flyers. But him and Wendell Clark had one of the most legendary fights if you go to YouTube. Let Wendell Clark buried the aforementioned Markel behind the net. Tocchet charged after him, and they had a nice fight. But they were also both good goal scorers, power forwards, and leaders. So I give the edge to Rick Tocchet for longevity. I think pure skill, though. Wendell Clark had more pure skill. What do you say, James?
I love Wendell Clark. And again, I said this earlier, I'm not turning my back on Leafs Nation, but there's a player that I love to scream and jump up and down and watch play, and it was Rick Tocchet, the Pocket Rocket is what I called him. I loved him. He was absolutely awesome. He was a player that I like to run around and say that I was when I was playing street hockey. So I'm definitely going Tocchet. I love Tocchet.
All right. No arguments for me. Nick.
Yeah, Tocchet. He's an all-time favorite of mine as well, and I agree with you guys.
But aren't they very similar? You know, that's why I chose all these
Wendell
players.
Clark was awesome.
He was awesome. And that's how you got Matt Sundin. You traded Wendell Clark to Quebec. Now we have a Hextall in his later years against Felix Potvin, and I believe they had a fun fight back in the day.
Yeah, I might have heard about that one.
Yeah. And Felix won the fight. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, Felix won the fight. So I go Felix Potvin. I thought he was a more big-time goaltender in that stage of his career. Hextall had the phenomenal rookie year and was just steady from that point forward. Felix Potvin had some really good years. So I go Felix Potvin. Nick.
I go Felix the Cat on that one. I got to pick a Maple Leaf somewhere, but yeah, he was one of my all-time. Being a goalie when I was growing up, he was one of my all-time favorites. He was so great.
And I could tell with the head bobs where James is going.
Who didn't put on a mask and say they're Felix the Cat at that point in time? I mean, everybody loved him. He was huge in Toronto. Yeah, you got to go Felix the Cat.
And our last one, because I know you press for time, I sense that there's children in the room, is we have Eric Landross and Matt Sundin. Eric, we know, had the generational label, but you can't be considered a generational player without the hardware, without the Stanley Cup. His career was cut short because of so many reasons. Matt Sundin had a longer career, a more productive point total career. Skill set, Eric Landross was an absolute beast. This is a tough one. I'll start with you, James.
Eric Landross. Love Matt Sundin. Love everything that he brought. Obviously, captain of Toronto Maple Leafs for a long time. But again, didn't bring us a cup either. But I look at Eric Landross, just how dominant it was. I liken him to Peter Forsberg. Peter Forsberg was so dominant on the puck, couldn't move him off the puck.
That's a sour name with that guy.
But you look at Eric Landross and just the big E, right? And I mean, one of my biggest memories of hockey as a kid was riding the bus to school and looked out the TTC bus window at the mailbox. It was Toronto Sun. And on the Toronto Sun, the cover of the Sun, Big E stripped to C was the headline. Because when he lost the captaincy in Philly. And I was shocked because just how good Eric Landross was and who he was. You know, obviously when you're younger, you don't know all the inner workings and different things that happen with players and teams. You're just excited to see your favorite player do his thing. And Eric Landross is my favorite guys to do that.
Yeah, as Nick mentioned on one of our other shows, if the guy at the top left, who was the general manager at the time, had a different viewpoint and let the guy get healthy and rest and stop rushing him back, this kid probably would have played more hockey, more productive hockey. It might have brought the team the trophy we so desire, but it ended
I'll say that
so
one hit by
badly.
Scott Stevens in the playoffs.
Well, that was
That
it.
that one
Yeah.
to him, and then the one to Paul Correa. Those two hits stick in my mind.
He was a
Those
vicious
were
hitter.
just brutal.
But Eric had the one knock on Eric. He skated with his head down. You can't skate with your head down to center ice. And
Well, maybe nowadays you can.
yeah, right. You're right.
Yeah.
Do those hits nowadays. Stevens wouldn't be in the league.
No, I completely agree with that. So, James, I hope you had fun today. It was a blast having you on. It was an absolute blast having you on. You are welcome anytime, anywhere. And maybe one day we'll, talk about positive things with both our teams. But it looks like your team is really on path for a tremendous year. And hopefully we can reconnect. I think they play each other in April. Maybe we'll do like a preview show.
We can do a preview show. Absolutely. I'd be all in for that. And here's the thing in Leafland, guys. It looks like we're all sun and roses over here. Not a single one of us is not sitting on pins and needles.
Oh, of course. You have 54 years of pins up your ass. I totally understand why.
We're definitely. Hey, listen, we after the playoffs last year, nothing would surprise me anymore with this team. So
and Edmonton's feeling the same. Edmonton's feeling the same way with McDavid and company. So it is interesting. But on behalf of James and Nick Tosti, I am Dan Green. We are Flyer Nice. Again, check us out on Heat Ratio Sports on YouTube. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. And we will join you on Sunday for another week of waking up with the Flyers after this little stretch. We play the Rangers Wednesday. We got COVID issues tonight. The Islanders game was canceled, as you know. So we have the Rangers tomorrow, and this could be the end of AV's leash if it's a bad performance, I would think. We're all thinking that. But we'll see what happens. Till Sunday, everyone. Have a good week of hockey and stay safe out there. Take care, everyone.